and welcome to yet another tutorial video. If you're new here, you are most welcome. My name is Chichi for short. Anybody returning subscriber, thanks for always coming back. And in today's tutorial, it's all about the A to Z of this beautiful Victorian corset top. I can see me rocking here. This was requested for and hence this video. So if you're interested in this particular one, sit right back, relax and enjoy watching. Do not forget to hit the subscribe button. If you haven't, give this video a like. And as always, share your thoughts in the comment section. So without further ado, let's dive right into the tutorial.
So the first thing to mark out or to get is the length of the top, okay? Normally this top comes in short length, like a croppy top. So it depends on the length you want, but I would advise a length not less than 22 inches so that it's not looking too short. So for me, I'm going to be using the length of 24 because I do not want it croppy in any form. So I first of all mark out the length and then I connect those points together, to indicate where the length of the top should stop. And then now that we have the length of the top, the next thing I'll be doing is to get the breast distance measurement and divide it by 2. So for my breast distance is 7.5, and by the time I divide it by 2, it's going to give me 3.75. And note that I'm going to be marking that from the center fold, and this is the center fold. Let me write it out so that you indicate. So the 3.75 is going to be marked from the center fold from this point to this point, okay? So this is the breast distance line, also known as the dart line. So you mark that from the center fold from the top of your pattern paper to the down, and then you connect the points together. And then the next thing is for us to mark out all our body vertical measurements, which are the armhole, the breast point, the underbust, the half waist, and of course the blouse length that we already have. So I start with the armhole length. I'm going to be using the armhole of 7.5 inches. For the armhole, I'm not going to be marking it from the center, just by the side. And this is the breast point. And here you have the underbust measurement, and here is the half waist measurement, okay? So I come over to the side of my pattern paper as well, and I mark the same thing, the armhole length of 7.5, the breast point of 10.5, the underbust of 14.5, and then the half waist of 16.75, okay? So I have that marked out. I'm extending it to this point because I'm going to be marking the back as well. That's so that it can accommodate the back. So for the armhole, I'm not going to be connecting it from the center fold. I do not usually like that. So it's just from the breast point and the other ones that I connect from the center fold area. So here is the armhole, the breast point, the underbust, and the half waist. So the next thing is to divide our shoulder measurement by 2 plus 1 inch, okay? So that's what we're going to be doing. So the shoulder here is 15 inches, divided by 2 will give us 7.5 plus 1 would give 8.5. So I mark that all the way to the armhole length like so, and I also connect the point so that I can have the armhole curve marked out. So now that we have the armhole length, the next thing I'm going to be curving out the armhole. But before I do that, I'm going to be marking out 3/4 for the shoulder slant. And from that point, I get the midpoint of the remaining armhole length. So here's the midpoint, and from that midpoint, I'm going to be curving out the armhole. So having done that, see, you need to pardon me on this one. I didn't know that it wasn't recording at the point I marked out all these points you can see. So I just found out that it wasn't recording. So I have to come back to explain how I got all this mark out you can see at this point, okay? So to get that done, you can see this curve or this arc you can see here. For a normal corset, there's this circumference that we mark, that's the bust circumference that we mark all the way. But in this case, instead of going through the hassle or stress of marking out the complete bust circumference, which we will not be needing at the end of the day, so that's why I just marked out just the points that we'll be needing, okay? And usually for the circumference, the measurement is always from the breast point. You measure from the breast point to the under bust. So whatever it gives you, you always mark, all the way around to give you the circumference. So from here to here gave me 3.75, and usually you have to mark it all the way around. Do you get to get your butt circumference? But in this case, we are not doing that. Like I said earlier, we just mark out the points that we need. So the measurement between the underbust, the breast point, and the underbust, I just mark just to the point that I need. I hope you understand exactly the point I'm making, and I have that connected at the lower part. I come to the upper part as well. I mark the same thing. That's how I got these two curves that you can see at the upper and the lower part of the a pattern paper, okay? So I just mark up to this point, and I also have it connected like so. So that's how I came about those points, because like I said, these are the 2 points I need, out of all the bust circumference that would have been marked out. So for these other points, we know that this is our normal breast distance measurement that we marked out initially, and I cancelled it out because I would no longer be needing it, okay? So from that point, I mark out 1 inch at this shoulder area. I mark 1 inch from that breast distance line, okay? And with the help of my curve rule, I connect from that 1 inch that I marked all the way somewhere above the breast point area, okay? Not exactly at the breast point, not allow it to touch the breast point so that it's not looking pointy. And then again, from this line again, from this point again, I mark another 1 inch, okay? And then I also connect back to this same point. I hope you understand. So this was how I got these 2 lines that you can see after the breast distance line, okay? And then coming to this point here, you see these 2 lines that I just marked out. Like I said, I said I cancelled out the original breast distance line. We do not need it anymore, okay? So coming down to this point, from this other one, I mark out half an inch. Note exactly where I'm marking. I mark half an inch from this other line, and from this second one again, I mark half an inch to the side. Okay, so from those points, I mark half an inch on both sides of these 2 lines that I marked out, and I have them connected to that same point as well. Okay, I hope you understand this point. Please, it is very, very important that you understand what I've just done here. Okay, so that's how I came about all this. Like I said, I'm so sorry. It wasn't recording, it wasn't intentional. And I hope I did justice to the explanation to your understanding. So let's proceed from here. So that's basically how I came about all this, in case you're wondering from where to where. So now you understand why. So you see this point, at this point, we are going to be marking the same thing at the lower part, as the under bust area. Between the bust distance line, that's the dark line, I'm going to be marking a total of 2 inches, but to the center fold area I mark half an inch, and then to the other side I'm going to be marking 1.5 inch, so making a total of 2 inches. Okay, so I hope you understand what I did here. I marked half inch on this center area, and then to the side I mark 1.5, giving me a total of 2 inches at the under bust area. So I'm going to be connecting back to the breast point area like I did to the upper part. Like I said, do not let it touch the breast point line, so that it's not giving you that pointy or sharp point at the bust area or the breast point area. Okay, so that's basically it for the upper and the lower part of it. And then coming back to the half waist area, I'm going to be marking 1 inch on both sides of the breast distance line. So I mark 1 inch on this point and then 1 inch on this other side, making a total of 2 inches at that point. And coming down to the blouse length area, from the center point I'm going to be marking 1 inch, and then from that 1 inch I mark another 1 inch. Okay, so I'm going to be connecting the points from the under bust down to the blouse length like so. Please note that for this particular Victorian corset, we are going to be having a total of 4 divisions for the front, but a total of 3 inches dart. Okay, we already have 2 darts consumed already. We are having 1 inch left, and we are going to be using that, shortly. But before we do that, we are going to be marking out the body circumference measurement. We divide it by 4 and add our seam allowance. So the bust I divide by 4 and add 2 inches seam allowance. So the bust here is 38 divided by 4 will give 9.5 plus 2 inches seam allowance. That's what we are going to be taking out at this point. I add 2 inches to that and it's going to give me 11.5. Okay, and at this armhole area I mark the same thing, 11.5 at that point. And then coming down to the under bust area, I divide the under bust measurement, I divide it by 4. I hope you still remember I already said that we're going to be using a total of 3 inches for this particular Victorian corset. That's for the 4 divisions. We already have 2 inches already used here. Okay, we've already consumed 2 inches and we are left with 1 inch, which we are going to be using later. Okay, so for the under bust round measurements, when you divide by 4, you are going to be adding those 3 inches allowance to your under bust. Okay, I hope that is well understood. So our under bust measurement, we divided by 4, it's going to give us 8 inches, and then we are going to be adding 3 inches that allowance to it, giving us 11 inches. And then at the half waist area, we are going to be dividing the waist measurement by 4 as well, and also add the 3 inches dart measurement, and that will also give us a total of 11 1/4. Okay, that's this point. I hope all these points are visible enough. And then coming down to the lower part of the top, remember that this top has a basque shape at the lower part, so we're not going to be using the hip measurement because it didn't get to the hip area. So what we're going to be doing is, from this half waist measurement, you come down by 4.5 inches or 4 inches, depending on how basque you want it to be. And at that point, I'm going to be dividing our lower waist. You know that for waist measurement, we have the upper and lower waist. So I divide the lower waist by 4 and also add 3 inches dart allowance or seam allowance, and then I'm connecting all the points from the armhole down to that point, and this is what it should give. And now it's time for me to curve out or mark out the basque shape of the top. So I use the curve rule to connect like so, and this is what it looks like. Okay, so now for the neckline, depending on how deep you want it to be, how deep and wide you want it to be. So from the center fold area, I can see from the center fold up to this point, can you see it gave us 4.5 inches. Okay, you can see that I have quarter in before that first or that second line. That's 4.5. That's the width of the neckline. And after this point again, I mark another quarter of an inch. Remember, this is for the joining. Okay, so, and for the depth of the neckline, depending on how deep you want that to be, I don't want it to be too exposed. So I'm using at least 7 inches for the depth of the neckline. Okay, so that's basically it. And I'm going to be marking out a squared neckline. And then measuring what I have at this point, I come down here so that I can have them equal. So I measure the total of what I have from the up all the way down. And I'm going to be connecting those points to give me my square neckline. I'm not going to be using the straight curve rule. I want to use a curved one, but the straight part of my curve rule, okay? And I'm going to be connecting the neckline. So for this part of the neckline, normally it should go straight like so, right? But because of this, our line that we marked here, this point, remember this one gave us 3.75. But at this point, because of the neckline, if you measure from the neckline, it's about quarter inch shorter, so that by the time we join, we do not have to start trimming off, so that the neckline is not too deep, you know. So I'm going to be, just see exactly what I'm doing. I don't know what to explain at this point. Just follow what I am, illustrating with my hands. Okay. And now for the shoulder slant, we already have it marked out. I just connect back to the base of the neckline. So now that we have the front, we have one more step for the front to be completed, or two basically. Believe me when I tell you that I do not know why I had to skip that and just, forge ahead to marking out the back pattern. I do not know why. I guess because this was taking too long, but do not mind, we are coming back to that. But before we get back to that, let's just understand what we are doing at this point. So this is me trying to mark out the back part, and this is the zipper allowance of 1.5 inch. That's for the back part. So this is the zipper allowance. And then for the length of the back does not have the basque shape, okay? So the length of the back is going to stop at the upper part of the side of the front. Okay, that's this point that I just marked out. So at this point now, I've realized that I've not completed the front, and I'm coming back to that. So let's assume that this zipper allowance part I marked does not exist, so let's forget that. So coming back to the front, measuring what I have from this point to this point, so I get the midpoint of this distance, and I have that marked out. So that's the middle of this point. So I'm going to be using that as a guideline to mark all the way to the armhole and then down to the blouse length. So at this point, it's time for us to exhaust all our 3 inches dart allowance, like I told you in the beginning. Remember, I added 3 inches to the seam allowance. Like here, we already took out 2 at this point, so remaining 1. So for that 1 inch, at this line, I'm going to be marking ½ inch between those lines, giving us a total of 1 inch, okay? So, and I connect just like a dart to the upper part and also to the lower part. So at this point, you can see that we have exhausted all our 3 inches dart allowance or seam allowance that we added to the body circumference measurement. So the first one I marked was 2, and this one is 1, giving us a total of 3, okay? So that's basically it. So if you count now, you can see that we have a total of 4 divisions, but because this is placed on fold, we can see only 2. By the time we open up, it's going to give us 4. So coming back to the back, the next thing we're going to be dividing the shoulder measurement by 2. We are not adding 1 inch like we did to the front at this point, okay? So we divide by 2, and it gives giving us 7.5. Okay, so mark it all the way to the armhole area. So basically what I did to the front is what I am repeating here. So in case you see me, being too fast here, I'm just assuming you already understood what I did to the front. So this is the 3/4 for the shoulder slant, and then I get the midpoint. I have the armhole curved out just like we already did. So that's it. And then for the neckline, remember we have 4.5 inches for the width of the neckline for the front, and then for the depth of the back, I want it to be lower than the front. Okay, so I'm going to be using about 8 inches for the depth of the neckline of the back, and that's it. And also at the zipper allowance, I mark the same thing. So at this point, I'm just trying to mark out the square shape of the back neckline, and I have them connected just like so. So that's basically it. And then I mark out the shoulder slant. And now it's time for me to mark out the dart line like I did to the front. That's the breast distance measurement I divide by 2, and whatever it gives me, I'm going to mark it all the way from the length of the back pattern up to the upper part like so, and then I connect with a straight line. So this is basically our dart line for the back. And at the half waist area, I'm going to mark in 1/2 inch between the dart lines so that I can have the darts connected to the upper part and also come down to the lower part. Okay, so this is the dart line for the back, and I connect all the way down to the blouse length of the back. And then again, it's time for us to divide all the body circumference by 4 and have them marked out. So the bust divided by 4 would give us 9.5, and then I'm going to be adding the dart seam allowance of 1 inch. And then to the under bust area, I divide by 4 and add the dart allowance of 1 inch, and that would be a total of 9 inch at the under bust. And at the half waist area, I divide the waist measurement by 4, add 1 inch dart allowance, and then at this top length of the back, I divide the lower waist by 4 and also add 1 inch seam allowance, and this is what the back looks like. So basically we are almost done with our pattern drafting, but we have our seam allowances to be added to the front and the back side. So I'm going to be adding a seam allowance of 1/2 inch to the sides of both the back and the back pattern. So I'm going to be having that added all the way from the armhole area to the top length, and also I do the same thing to the side of the front. So that's just for the side seam allowance. And after that, we are ready for our pattern to be used. Please guys, consider subscribing and give this video a like if you haven't done that already. So it's time for us to cut out our patterns and just basically watch what I am doing with the cutting so that you know what and what not to cut. So this is just the cutting of the pattern. Please give this video a like, subscribe. Do not just watch. Encourage your baby girl by clicking on that red subscribe button. It is totally free, okay? Nobody's charging you any time. So that's basically it. I just cut out all the patterns. Please, like I said, watch carefully. You saw how I maneuvered this neckline area. Please watch that again if you didn't get that. So I have the front pattern already cut out. So this is our front pattern, and now it's time for me to cut out the back. But before I do that for the back, to eliminate any zipper bulge at the back, at the half waist length, I come in by 1/2 inch. You can use cutter if the back is very deep, and then I connect from that point all the way up and all the way down. And also at this second line, I do the same thing. I come in by 1/2 inch, and then I connect all the way up and all the way down. Like I said, this is to eliminate any form of zipper bulge that may arise, by the time you're done stitching. So I have the back also cut out. Guys, I'm sure you're loving the outcome already. This is giving what it should give. So I cut out all the patterns, and this is the neckline. And for the back, if you don't want the back to be in pieces, you don't need to cut out the dart line. But for me, I want it to be in pieces because I want to insert the boning at the back as well. But if you just want to hold your dart without having your fabric pieces, then there's no need for you to do this point. You can just leave it the way it is and just have your dart sewed at the end of the day. So this is basically what our front and back pattern look like. So I have to number so that by the time I'm cutting on fabric, I would know exactly what and what I am placing on what. So guys, this is all it takes for you to have your beautiful Victorian corset pattern cut out. So for the cutting of your fabric using your pattern, when you place your pattern on your fabric, please note the point that I'll be adding 1/2 inch seam allowance to the fabric. I'm not going to be adding the 1/2 inch to all the sides of the fabric. Just note the part that I added 1/2 inch. So for this one, I added all the way apart from the upper side, and then for this back zipper allowance area, I pin it down, and then for that one, by the time I'm cutting, I'm not going to be adding the 1/2 inch allowance to the zipper area, okay? I'm not going to be adding that. I just cut exactly what I have at this point, and the upper part, it's only at the lower part and this other side that I'm adding 1/2 inch seam allowance, okay? So just note what I am cutting and know where to add, and know exactly where not to add your 1/2 inch seam allowance. That's just what I would say, okay? So that's basically all you have to do for your pattern and your fabric cutting. I'm not going to be adding the sewing the sewing tutorial to this video because this video is already long enough. I'm going to be making a separate video for the sewing tutorial if you're interested in that. So guys, I hope you enjoyed and have learned a lot. Cutting these are Victorian corsets, and this is what our patterns and our fabric looks like. So it's time for sewing. Like I said, I'll see you in our sewing tutorial. Thanks for watching, and see you in my next one. Bye.